Naomi's grief was private, until one of her letters to her late husband landed in the hands of a stranger. He read it, he answered, and through ink and loss, two broken hearts began to find their way back to life. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. Marley Quinn stared at the pregnancy test in her bathroom, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Two pink lines. There was no mistaking it. No, 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 she whispered, sitting on the edge of her friend's bathtub. The small apartment bathroom suddenly felt even smaller, like the walls were closing in. She hadn't planned this, not any of it. 26 years old with student loans piling up, a job that barely paid the bills, and now a baby on the way. And the father, gone. Jake had been a summer romance, 3 months of beach dates and starlit conversations that ended with him taking a job overseas and promising to call. He never did. Marley's hands trembled as she picked up her phone. She needed to tell someone, anyone. The weight of this secret was already crushing her. With shaky fingers, she took a photo of the test and opened her messages. She typed her best friend Lisa's name, but her vision was blurry with tears. She typed a message beneath the photo. "I'm scared, I don't know what to do." She hit send and dropped her phone on the bathroom counter like it was burning hot. Then she slid to the floor, hugging her knees to her chest, and let the tears flow freely. What she didn't realize was that, in her panicked state, she hadn't sent the message to Lisa at all. Lucien Thorne sat in his corner office, 40 stories above Manhattan. The wall of windows offered a panoramic view of the city, but he rarely took time to appreciate it anymore. At 31, he had built Thorne Biotech, investments into one of the most successful venture capital firms in the medical technology space. Forbes had him listed as one of their 30 under 30 just before he aged out, and his net worth had recently crossed into billionaire territory. On paper, Lucien had everything. The reality was much different. 2 years ago, his fiancée Rebecca had walked out after their third failed round of IVF. "I can't do this anymore," she'd said, slipping off her 3-carat engagement ring. "I need someone who can give me a family." The cruel irony wasn't lost on him. He was the one with fertility issues, yet she left as if he'd chosen this path. Since then, Lucien had thrown himself into work, buying a penthouse that felt too big and filling his calendar with meetings that ran late into the evening. He'd buried his dream of having a family under layers of spreadsheets and investment portfolios. His phone buzzed on his desk, interrupting his thoughts. Probably his assistant with another meeting request. He glanced down, surprised to see a text from an unknown number. When he opened it, he froze. It was a photo of a positive pregnancy test. Below it, a message. "I'm scared. I don't know what to do." Lucien stared at the screen, an unexpected ache filling his chest. His first thought was that it must be spam, some strange new scam, but something about the message felt raw, real. The simple admission of fear, the plea for help with no specific ask. He should ignore it, delete it. It was clearly meant for someone else. Instead, he found himself typing back, "You don't know me, but I got your message, and if you let me, I want to help. I want to be there, even if it's just to listen." He hesitated for only a second before pressing send. Marley had finally pulled herself together enough to leave the bathroom when her phone dinged. Lisa finally responding. She picked it up, ready for her friend's support and advice. Instead, she saw a response from a number she didn't recognize. "Oh my God," she gasped, horror washing over her as she realized what had happened. She'd sent her most vulnerable moment to a complete stranger. She read their response, expecting mockery or something creepy. The kindness in the reply caught her completely off guard. "You don't know me, but I got your message, and if you let me, I want to help, I want to be there, even if it's just to listen." Humiliation burned through her, followed quickly by suspicion. Who responds like that to a wrong number? It had to be some kind of weird come-on or scam. She typed back, "I'm sorry, that wasn't meant for you. Please delete it." The response came almost immediately. "Of course, I understand, but my offer stands." Sometimes it's easier to talk to a stranger, Marley stared at her phone, torn between embarrassment and curiosity. There was something about the message that seemed genuine, After a moment, she typed again. Why would you want to help someone you don't even know? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Because everyone deserves to have someone in their corner, and it sounds like you could use that right now. Marley sat down on her bed staring at the message. Maybe it was the hormones, or the overwhelming loneliness she'd been feeling since discovering the pregnancy, but something made her continue the conversation. I don't even know who you are. My name is Lucienne. And you are? She hesitated, then decided just a first name couldn't hurt. Marley. Nice to meet you, Marley. How are you feeling right now? Such a simple question, but it opened a floodgate. Before she knew it, Marley was pouring her heart out to this stranger. How terrified she was, how alone she felt, how she had no idea if she could do this. Lucien's responses were thoughtful, never pushy or judgmental. He asked questions that made her think, offered gentle suggestions, and most importantly, he listened. When she finally looked at the time, she was shocked to see they'd been texting for over an hour. I should go, she wrote. Thank you for being kind. I'm still embarrassed, but it helped to talk. Don't be embarrassed. Life throws us curveballs, and you can message me anytime, Marley. I mean that. She put her phone down, not sure if she would ever text him again, but somehow feeling a little less alone. 3 days later, Marley found herself staring at her phone, Lucien's number on the screen. She'd made an appointment with an OB/GYN for the following week, and the anxiety was overwhelming. Before she could talk herself out of it, she sent a message. Do you still mean what you said? About listening? His reply came within minutes. Absolutely. And just like that, they started talking regularly. She never told him her last name or where she lived, and he never asked. He seemed content with the boundaries she set, which made her feel safe enough to keep opening up. Lucien was easy to talk to. He never tried to tell her what to do about the baby. He just asked thoughtful questions and offered support. When she told him she was keeping the baby, he simply said, You're stronger than you think, Marley, and you won't be doing this alone. After 2 weeks of texting, he suggested they talk on the phone. Marley was hesitant but agreed. Hearing his voice for the first time, deep, with a slight rasp and a hint of an accent she couldn't place, made him suddenly real in a way their texts hadn't. I have my first doctor's appointment tomorrow, she told him during their third call. I'm nervous. What are you most worried about? He asked. Everything, she admitted with a small laugh. What if something's wrong? What if the doctor judges me for being single and broke? What if I pass out during the blood test? All valid concerns, Lucien said, his voice warm. But you'll get through it, one step at a time. She took a deep breath. I wish I had someone to go with me. The silence that followed lasted just a beat too long. I could go with you, Lucien offered finally. If you wanted. Marley's heart raced. Meet him in person? This stranger who had become her confidant. It seemed crazy, dangerous even, but something in her trusted him. You would do that? Of course, he said simply. No pressure, just an offer. Marley thought about going into that office alone, facing all those questions and tests by herself. Okay, she said before she could change her mind. Yes, I'd like that. They arranged to meet outside the doctor's office. Marley gave him the address and time, then spent the entire night wondering if she was making a huge mistake. The next morning, Marley arrived at the medical building 20 minutes early, her stomach in knots. She'd told Lisa where she was going and who she was meeting, just in case this Lucien turned out to be a serial killer. She paced outside, rehearsing what she would say when she saw him. Should she hug him, shake his hand? What if he looked nothing, like she imagined, Marley? She turned toward the voice and froze. The man approaching her was tall with broad shoulders and dark hair that curled slightly at the temples. He was dressed in a simple button-down shirt and jeans, but something about him, maybe his posture, or the quiet confidence in his stride, made him stand out. His eyes were the color of stormy seas, and they were looking at her with genuine concern. Lucien, she asked, though she already knew it was him. He smiled, the expression transforming his serious face. It's good to finally meet you in person. You too, she managed, suddenly feeling shy. Thank you for coming. "Thank you for trusting me," he countered, stopping a respectful distance from her. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified," she admitted. He nodded. "That's understandable, but you're not alone anymore. I'm right here with you." As they walked into the building together, Marley couldn't explain the strange sense of calm that came over her. She'd known this man for less than a month. They'd met because of a wrong number. She knew almost nothing about him, and yet somehow she believed him when he said she wasn't alone. For the first time since seeing those two pink lines, Marley felt like maybe, just maybe, everything might be okay. "I've written the first part of The Message That Changed Everything, following your guidelines for a straightforward narrative with simple language suitable for readers over 50. The story introduces our main characters Marley and Lucienne, sets up their initial connection through the accidental text message, and builds toward their first in-person meeting. I've kept the language direct and focused on the emotional journey of both characters, avoiding complex words or literary descriptions. The narrative flows naturally with a clear timeline and focuses on developing the relationship between Marley and Lucienne. The doctor's office was busy that morning. Marley filled out paperwork while Lucienne sat quietly beside her, not intruding but present. When the nurse called her name, Marley hesitated. "Would you like me to come in with you?" Lucienne asked softly. "Would that be weird?" Marley whispered, clutching her purse. "I mean, we just met in person. It's whatever you're comfortable with," he said. "I can wait here or come with you. No pressure." Marley thought for a moment. "Maybe just for the talking part, not the exam?" Lucienne nodded. "Of course." In the consultation room, Dr. Wilson raised an eyebrow when Marley introduced Lucienne simply as a friend, but didn't comment further. The doctor confirmed Marley's pregnancy, about 8 weeks along, and walked through what to expect in the coming months. "Do you have any questions?" Dr. Wilson asked. Marley's mind went blank. There were 1,000 things she wanted to know, but she couldn't form a single coherent thought. "What about nutrition?" Lucienne spoke up. "Are there specific things she should be eating or avoiding?" Dr. Wilson smiled and launched into recommendations about prenatal vitamins, foods rich in folic acid, and the importance of staying hydrated. As the doctor continued, Lucienne pulled out a small notebook and began jotting down notes. Marley watched. Him, touched by the gesture. When had anyone ever taken notes for her before? After the consultation, Lucienne waited in the lobby while Marley had her exam. When she emerged 45 minutes later, he was still there, flipping through a parenting magazine. "Everything okay?" he asked, standing up. Marley nodded, holding up a small printout. "I got to hear the heartbeat," she said, her voice wobbling slightly. "And they gave me this." Lucienne looked at the grainy ultrasound image, his expression softening. "That's amazing, Marley." Outside the office, they stood awkwardly on the sidewalk. Marley wasn't sure what happened next. Was this it? Would they go back to just texting? "Have you had lunch?" Lucienne asked, breaking the silence. "No, actually, I was too nervous to eat this morning. There's a good diner around the corner. Would you like to join me?" The diner was cozy and not too crowded. Over soup and sandwiches, their conversation flowed more easily than Marley had expected. Lucienne asked about her job at a local bookstore, and she found herself telling him about her English literature degree and dream of opening her own shop someday. "What about you?" she finally asked. "I've been talking about myself this whole time. What do you do?" A shadow crossed Lucienne's face. "I work in investments," he said simply. "Biotech, mostly." "That sounds complicated," Marley said with a small smile. "Sometimes, but I like it." He hesitated, then added, "I like helping companies that are trying to make a difference in healthcare." There was something he wasn't saying, Marley could tell, but she didn't push. After all, they were still practically strangers. As they finished their meal, Lucienne pulled out the notebook where he'd written the doctor's advice. "I made a copy of the notes for you," he said, tearing out several pages and sliding them across the table. Marley looked down at his neat handwriting. He'd organized everything into categories: nutrition, symptoms to watch for, important dates, recommended tests. "Thank you," she said, genuinely touched, "for all of this, for coming with me today." "It was my pleasure," he said, his eyes meeting hers. And I meant what I said before. You're not alone in this, Marley. Not if you don't want to be. Over the next few weeks, Lucien became a constant presence in Marley's life. They texted daily and spoke on the phone most evenings. When Marley mentioned struggling with morning sickness, a package arrived at her apartment the next day with ginger tea, saltine crackers and anti-nausea wristbands. When she worried about affording baby supplies, Lucien sent her links to second-hand shops and budget-friendly registries. He never pushed too hard or moved too fast. He seemed content to follow Marley's lead, which she appreciated more than she could say. One Saturday morning, 3 weeks after the doctor's appointment, Marley's phone rang. It was Lucien. "I'm at the farmer's market on Main Street," he said without preamble. "They have these incredible strawberries that I thought you might like. Are you free to meet up?" 20 minutes later, Marley found him examining peaches at a fruit stand. He was dressed casually in jeans and a simple grey t-shirt that fit him well, too well if she was being honest with herself. "Testing the ripeness?" she asked, coming up beside him. He turned, his face lighting up when he saw her. "Marley, you made it. I was promised incredible strawberries," she teased. "How could I resist?" They spent the morning wandering through the market. Lucien bought her the strawberries, which were indeed amazing, along with fresh bread and some local honey. When they passed a booth selling handmade baby quilts, he noticed Marley's gaze lingering on a blue and yellow one with tiny stars. "Do you like that one?" he asked quietly. "It's beautiful," she admitted, "but way out of my budget right now." Lucien looked like he wanted to say something, but instead just nodded and guided her to the next booth. Later, as they sat on a park bench, eating their strawberries, Marley found herself studying Lucien's profile. There was something almost regal about him. The straight nose, the strong jawline, the way he carried himself. Yet he never made her feel less than or judged for her circumstances. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said suddenly. He turned to face her. "Of course. Why are you doing all this? I mean, helping me, spending time with me. You don't have to." Lucien was quiet for a moment, considering her question. "When I got your text that day," he said finally, "something about it just resonated with me. I can't really explain it, but I felt like maybe there was a reason it came to me instead of your friend." "So it's like fate or something?" Marley asked, raising an eyebrow. He laughed softly. "I don't know about fate, but I do believe that sometimes people come into our lives exactly when we need them." "And you needed me?" she challenged. His smile faded, replaced by something more vulnerable. "Maybe I did," he admitted. "My life before, it was empty in a lot of ways. Just work and more work. You gave me something else to think about, someone else to care about." The honesty in his voice caught Marley off guard. She looked down at her hands, unsure how to respond. "I'm not trying to pressure you," Lucien added, quickly. "I just want you to know that this isn't charity or pity. I genuinely enjoy spending time with you, Marley." She looked up at him, finding nothing but sincerity in his grey-blue eyes. "I enjoy spending time with you too," she said softly. As Marley entered her second trimester, the morning sickness finally began to subside. She had more energy and found herself looking forward to the future rather than dreading it. Lucien had become an integral part of her life, though she still maintained some boundaries. They had never been to each other's homes, for instance, and there were topics they both seemed to avoid. One evening, they were having dinner at a small Italian restaurant when Marley's phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. "Everything okay?" Lucien asked, noticing her frown. "It's my friend Lisa. She wants to meet you," Marley said, looking up from her phone. "She says she's tired of hearing about Mr. Perfect and needs to see if you're real." Lucien's eyes crinkled with amusement. "Mr. Perfect, huh?" Marley blushed. "She exaggerates." "I'd be happy to meet her," he said. "Whenever you're comfortable with that." "Really?" "You wouldn't mind?" He shook his head. "Not at all. She's important to you." The following weekend, they met Lisa for brunch at a cafe near Marley's apartment. Lisa arrived first, texting Marley that she'd grabbed a table by the window. "Ready?" Lucien asked as they approached the cafe. Marley nodded, though her stomach was doing flips. Lisa was protective and didn't trust easily. What if she didn't like Lucien? Lisa stood up when she saw them, her eyes widening slightly as she took in Lucien. Marley made the introductions, watching nervously as her best friend sized him up. "So, you're the wrong number guy," Lisa said, shaking his hand. "That's me," Lucien replied with an easy smile. "It's nice to meet you, Lisa. Marley speaks highly of you." They settled into their seats, and to Marley's relief, the conversation flowed naturally. Lisa asked about Lucien's work, and he gave the same vague answer he'd given Marley about biotech investments. "Sounds fancy," Lisa commented. "Do you work for a big firm?" "I run my own company, actually," Lucien said, looking slightly uncomfortable. "It's relatively small." Lisa nodded. Though Marley could tell her friend was curious about the details Lucien wasn't sharing. After brunch, Lisa insisted on helping Marley to the bathroom, a transparent excuse to talk privately. "Okay, spill?" Lisa demanded, once they were alone. "Who is this guy, really?" "What do you mean?" Marley asked, confused. "Marley, that man is not running some relatively small company," Lisa said, making air quotes. "His watch costs more than my car." "What? No way," Marley laughed. "I'm serious. That's an Audemars Piguet. My ex-boyfriend was obsessed with luxury watches. They start at like $30,000. Marley stared at her friend. "That can't be." "Right? Lucien's nice, but he's not... I mean, he never acts like he's loaded," Lisa finished for her. "That's exactly my point. Why is he hiding it?" The question haunted Marley for the rest of the day. When Lucien dropped her off at her apartment building, she almost asked him about it, but couldn't find the right words. Later that night, curiosity got the better of her. She opened her laptop and typed Lucien Thorne Biotech into the search bar, not really expecting anything to come up. What she found left her speechless. Lucien Thorne wasn't just successful, he was a billionaire. Forbes articles, business profiles, photos of him at galas and economic forums. Thorne Biotech Investments was a major player in the healthcare venture capital world, with offices in New York, London, and Tokyo. And he had never said a word about any of it. Marley sat back, trying to make sense of it all. Why would someone like Lucien Thorne take an interest in her problems? Why would he spend his Saturday mornings at farmers' markets with a pregnant bookstore clerk, when he could be flying in private jets or sailing on yachts? More importantly, why had he hidden who he really was? She picked up her phone, intending to confront him, but stopped herself. She needed time to think, to process this revelation. One thing was certain, nothing about their relationship was what she had thought. Lucien knew something was wrong the moment Marley cancelled their plans to visit a baby store the next day. Her text was brief and unusually formal. "Something came up, can't make it tomorrow, sorry." He tried calling, but she didn't answer. When he texted to ask if everything was okay, her response was equally terse. "Just need some space." 3 days passed with minimal communication. Lucien respected her request for space, though it worried him. Had he done something wrong? Was she having second thoughts about letting him into her life? On the 4th day, his phone rang. Marley's name lit up the screen. "Marley," he answered immediately. "Are you okay?" "We need to talk," she said, her voice cool. "Can you meet me at River Park by the fountain?" "Of course. What time?" "An hour from now." The park was quiet when Lucien arrived, just a few joggers and people walking their dogs. He spotted Marley, sitting on a bench near the fountain, her red hair bright in the afternoon sun. As he approached, he could see the tension in her shoulders. "Thank you for coming," she said, not quite meeting his eyes. Lucien sat beside her, leaving a respectful distance between them. "What's going on, Marley?" "I've been worried about you." She turned to face him, her green eyes hard. "Why didn't you? Tell me who you really are." The question hit him like a physical blow. For a moment, he couldn't speak. "I looked you up," Marley continued, her voice rising slightly. "Lucien Thorne, billionaire CEO of Thorne Biotech Investments. You're practically famous in the business world. And you never thought to mention it?" Lucien closed his eyes briefly. "I was going to tell you." "When?" "After I'd told you every detail." "Of my sad, broke life? Was this all some kind of charity project for you?" "No," he said firmly. "Absolutely not." "Then what?" she demanded. "What possible reason could you have for hiding something like that from me?" Lucien took a deep breath. "When I got your text that day, it was the first time in years that someone had reached out to me, even accidentally, without knowing who I was or what I could do for them. He looked out at the fountain, gathering his thoughts. My whole life people have wanted something from me. Money, connections, status. My last relationship... He paused, pain flickering across his face. My fiancée left me 2 years ago, after... We found out I couldn't give her children. At least that's what she said. But I always suspected it was also because the fertility treatments were affecting the company's stock price. Marley's expression softened slightly, but she remained silent. With you, Lucien continued, it was different. You didn't know who I was. You weren't impressed by my name or my bank account. You were just... you. And the more I got to know you, the more I feared that telling you would change everything. So you lied to me, Marley said flatly. I never lied, he countered. I just didn't tell you everything. I do work in biotech investments. I am involved in healthcare companies. I just omitted the scale. Marley stood up abruptly. That's still lying, Lucien. And it makes me wonder what else you've been hiding. She began to walk away, but Lucien rose and caught up to her. Marley, please, I made a mistake. I should have told you sooner. But nothing else I've shared with you has been anything but the truth. She stopped walking but didn't turn around. I don't know if I can believe that. What can I do? He asked, desperation creeping into his voice. How can I make this right? Marley finally turned to face him, tears in her eyes. I don't know if you can. I've been let down by too many people, Lucien. I can't do it again, especially not now. She rested a hand on her stomach, which was just beginning to show the slightest curve. I thought you were different, she said quietly. I thought you were someone I could trust. As she walked away, Lucien stood frozen, watching her go. For the first time in his carefully controlled life, he had no idea what to do next. All he knew was that he couldn't lose her. Not when he'd finally found something, someone real. I've written part 2 of The Message That Changed Everything, continuing to follow your guidelines for straightforward narrative and simple language. This section develops Marley and Lucien's relationship further, introduces the complication of Lucien's hidden wealth, and ends with their first major conflict when Marley discovers the truth about who he really is. The narrative remains focused on the emotional journey of the characters while maintaining a clear timeline and direct storytelling approach. I've kept the language accessible for an older audience while still conveying the depth of the characters' emotions and the growing complexity of their relationship. A week passed, and Marley heard nothing from Lucien. She told herself it was better this way, clean break, no complications. She could focus on preparing for the baby and forget about the man who had briefly made her believe in something more. But forgetting Lucien was harder than she expected. She missed his daily texts, his thoughtful questions, the way he seemed to anticipate her needs before she even voiced them. Several times, she found herself reaching for her phone to tell him something, only to remember they weren't speaking. Lisa tried to cheer her up, suggesting they go shopping for baby things. I don't have the money for that right now, Marley said as they sat in her tiny living room. I need to save everything I can. You could always call him, Lisa suggested gently. He clearly cares about you. Marley shook her head. He lied to me, Lisa. How am I supposed to trust him after that? Did he, though? From what you told me, he just didn't volunteer information about being rich. It's a pretty big thing to leave out, Marley argued. Lisa shrugged. Maybe, but think about it. From his perspective, people probably try to use him for his money all the time. And you did say he was engaged before and it ended badly. Marley sighed, running a hand over her face. It doesn't matter anyway. He hasn't tried to contact me, so he's probably moved on already. Or he's respecting your request for space, Lisa countered. Look, I'm not saying you have to forgive him, but at least hear him out before you make any final decisions. Later that night, Marley sat on her bed staring at her phone. Her finger hovered over Lucien's name in her contacts. Pride told her not to call. Pride told her she was better off without his complications in her life. But something else, something that felt a lot like her heart, whispered that maybe, just maybe, what they had was worth fighting for. Before she could change her mind, she typed a message. I think we should talk. Can you meet tomorrow? His response came almost immediately. Name the time and place, I'll be there. The coffee shop was busy with the morning rush when Marley arrived. She spotted Lucien instantly, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups in front of him. He stood. When he saw her, his expression a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "I got you herbal tea," he said as she approached. "The ginger one you like." "Thank you," Marley said quietly, taking the seat across from him. For a moment, neither spoke. Lucien looked tired, Marley noticed. There were shadows under his eyes, and his usual impeccable appearance seemed slightly rumpled. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," he said finally. "I've been going crazy this past week." "Me too," she admitted, wrapping her hands around the warm cup. "I've been doing a lot of thinking." "So have I," he said. "Marley, I want to apologize. You were right. I should have been honest with you from the beginning. I was just afraid." "Afraid of what?" Lucien's eyes met hers. "Afraid that if you knew who I was, what I had, you'd see me differently. That you'd stop seeing me at all and only see what I could give you." "That's not fair," Marley said, feeling a flash of anger. "I never asked you for anything." "I know that," he said quickly. "That's exactly why I—" He trailed off, then started again. "After Rebecca left, I shut down. Work became everything. I convinced myself I didn't need connection, that I was better off alone. And then I got your text." Marley listened, her anger softening despite herself. For the first time in years, someone needed me. Just me, not my money or my influence. And the more I got to know you, the more I— He hesitated. "The more I cared about you. I was afraid to ruin that by telling you the truth." "So you thought." "You'd just never tell me," Marley asked. "That doesn't make sense, Lucien." "No, of course not," he said, shaking his head. "I was waiting for the right time. I wanted you to know me, the real me, before you knew about the rest of it." Marley considered his words. There was a certain logic to them, even if she didn't completely agree with his approach. "I understand why you did it," she said finally, "but it still hurt to find out that way. To realize there was this huge part of your life you were keeping from me." "I know," he said, his voice low with regret, "and I'm truly sorry for that." Marley took a sip of her tea, using the moment to gather her thoughts. "I need to know something," she said finally. "Why me? With all the people you could have in your life, why get involved with a broke pregnant bookstore clerk with student debt and a tiny apartment?" Lucian's expression softened. "Because you're real, Marley. You're genuine in a way that most people in my world aren't. You care about things that matter, books and ideas and connections, not status or money. And from the moment we met, I felt like I could breathe around you, like I could just be myself, not the version of me that everyone expects." His words touched something deep inside her, but Marley wasn't ready to surrender just yet. "If we were to try again," she said. "Carefully, I'd need complete honesty from now on. No more hiding things, no matter how uncomfortable." "Absolutely," Lucian agreed immediately. "Total transparency. And I need you to understand that I don't want your money," Marley continued. "I'm not with you for what you can give me or buy. Me, I need to do this, raise this baby, build my life on my own terms." "I respect that," he said. "But Marley, being there for someone doesn't always mean financially. It means showing up, listening, supporting their dreams. That's what I want to do for you, if you'll let me." Marley felt the walls around her heart beginning to crumble. There was such sincerity in his eyes, such genuine care in his voice. "I've missed you," she admitted softly. Lucien reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of hers. "I've missed you too, more than I thought possible." Slowly, deliberately, Marley moved her hand until her fingers touched his. It was a small gesture, but it felt like a new beginning. Over the next 2 months, Marley and Lucien rebuilt their relationship, this time on a foundation of complete honesty. True to his word, Lucien answered all of Marley's questions about his life and work. She learned about his childhood as the son of a brilliant doctor and a business-savvy mother, about the early years of struggling to get his company off the ground, and about the painful end of his engagement. In return, Marley opened up more about her own past, her parents' divorce when she was young, her mother's struggle to make ends meet, and her determination to create a different life for her own child. As Marley entered her 6th month of pregnancy, Lucien became even more attentive. He attended every doctor's appointment, read all the same parenting books she did, and even took a weekend birthing class with her, much to the amusement of the other couples. "You realize everyone thinks you're the father," Marley whispered during a break in the class. Lucienne smiled. "Does that bother you?" She considered the question. "No," she said honestly. "It doesn't." One Saturday afternoon, Lucienne suggested they go for a drive. "There's something I want to show you," he said, a hint of nervousness in his voice. He drove them to a quiet residential neighborhood about 20 minutes from Marley's apartment. The houses were modest but well-maintained, with tidy yards and tree-lined streets. "What are we doing here?" Marley asked as Lucienne parked in front of a small blue house with white shutters. "Come see," he said, coming around to open her door. They walked up the path to the front porch, where Lucienne pulled out a key and unlocked the door. "Lucienne," Marley said slowly, "whose house is this?" He held the door open for her. "Why don't you look around and then we can talk?" Confused but curious, Marley stepped inside. The house was empty of furniture but filled with light from large windows. There was a cozy living room with a fireplace, a kitchen with new appliances, and down a short hallway 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. One of the bedrooms was painted a soft yellow with white built-in bookshelves along one wall. A rocking chair sat in the corner by the window, the only piece of furniture in the entire house. "Lucienne," Marley said, turning to find him watching her from the doorway. "What is this place?" "It's a house," he said simply. "I can see that," she replied, rolling her eyes. "But why are we here?" Lucienne took a deep breath. "I bought it," he admitted. "For you?" "Well, for you and the baby." Marley stared at him, speechless. "Before you say anything," he continued quickly, "I know you want to do things on your own. I respect that. This isn't me trying to take over or make decisions for you. It's just, your apartment is a 4th-floor walk-up with no elevator. In a few months, that's going to be really difficult with a newborn. This place is 1 level in a safe neighborhood, close to good schools. And there's a great bookstore for sale just down the street that would be perfect for someone with your knowledge and passion." Marley leaned against the wall, feeling overwhelmed. "Lucienne, I can't accept this. It's too much." "You don't have to decide right now," he said, "and you don't have to accept it as a gift. We could work out a rent arrangement or a rent-to-own situation. Whatever makes you comfortable. I want you and the baby to be safe and happy." Marley looked around the sunny room, trying to imagine herself living there, raising her child in this house. It was exactly the kind of home she'd always dreamed of having, but never thought she could afford. "The bookstore," she said finally. "Is it really for sale?" Lucienne nodded. "Corner Books. The owner is retiring after 30 years. It's a neighborhood institution." Marley's heart raced at the thought. Her own bookstore, a real home for her baby. It was everything she wanted but was afraid to hope for. "This is a lot to process," she said honestly. "I know," Lucienne acknowledged. "Take all the time you need, no pressure." As they were leaving, Marley paused on the front porch, looking back at the house. "Why the rocking chair?" she asked. "In the yellow room?" A shadow crossed Lucienne's face. "It was my mother's," he said quietly. "She used to rock me to sleep in it when I was small. After she died, I kept it, even though I never thought I'd have a use for it." The personal significance of the gesture touched Marley deeply. This wasn't just Lucienne throwing money at her problems. This was him sharing a piece of his heart, his history. On the drive back to her apartment, Marley was quiet, lost in thought. When Lucienne pulled up outside her building, he turned to her. "I know it's a lot," he said softly, "and if it's too much, I understand. But I want you to know that whatever you decide about the house, it doesn't change how I feel about you." Marley looked at him, really looked at him. Beyond the wealth and the status was a man who had been hurt, who had closed himself off from the world, but who had somehow found the courage to open his heart again to her. "How do you feel about me?" she asked, barely above a whisper. Lucienne's eyes held hers. "I love you, Marley," he said simply. "I think I have almost from the beginning." The words hung between them, honest and vulnerable. Marley felt tears spring to her eyes. "Pa, you don't have to say anything," Lucienne added quickly. "I just wanted you to know." But Marley did have something to say. She leaned across the console and kissed him softly, her heart racing as his hand came up to gently cup her face. When they parted, she smiled through her tears. "I love you too," she admitted, "and it terrifies me." "Why?" he asked, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Because I've never had anything this good in my life," she said, "and I'm scared of losing it, of losing you." "You won't lose me," Lucien promised. "I'm not going anywhere, Marley, not unless you want me to." 2 weeks later, Marley moved into the blue house. Lucien helped her pack and hired movers for the heavy lifting, respecting her insistence on paying for some of it herself. They compromised on a rental agreement that was well below market value, but still gave Marley the independence she needed. The key. Bookstore, however, remained a dream for the future. Despite Lucien's offer to help with financing, Marley wanted to wait until after the baby was born before making such a big commitment. As her due date approached, Marley's nesting instinct kicked into high gear. She arranged and rearranged the nursery, washed and folded tiny clothes, and stocked the freezer with meals for after the birth. Lucien spent most of his free time at the house, often working from the second bedroom that they'd set up as a home office. He had cut back his hours at work, delegating more responsibilities to his team so he could be available when Marley needed him. One evening, as they sat on the porch swing Lucien had installed, Marley brought up something that had been on her mind. "We never talk about your infertility," she said gently. "Is that still... is it something you've come to terms with?" Lucien was quiet for a moment. "I thought I had," he said finally. "I threw myself into work and convinced myself that a family wasn't in the cards for me. But then you came along and suddenly..." "Suddenly what?" Marley prompted when he trailed off. He looked at her, his eyes filled with emotion. "Suddenly I wanted it all again. Not just any family, but a family with you." Marley took his hand, resting it on her rounded belly. "You know that this baby isn't biologically yours," she said softly. "But if you meant what you said that day in the park, about wanting to be the man who shows up..." "I meant every word," Lucien said firmly. "Then you will be this child's father," Marley said, "in all the ways that truly matter." Just then, the baby kicked against Lucien's hand. His eyes widened in wonder. "Was that..." Marley nodded, smiling. "Someone saying hello?" Lucien's expression as he felt the baby move, a mixture of awe, joy, and love, confirmed what Marley already knew in her heart. This man, who had come into her life by chance, would be the father her child deserved, but fate, it seemed, wasn't finished testing them yet. The following week, Marley was organizing books in the nursery when the doorbell rang. She wasn't expecting anyone. Lucien was at an important meeting in the city and wouldn't be back until evening. When she opened the door, she found herself face to face with a tall, handsome man who looked vaguely familiar. "Can I help you?" she asked. The man stared at her, his eyes dropping to her pregnant belly, then back to her face. "I'm looking for Lucien Thorne," he said. "I was told I might find him here." "He's not home right now," Marley said cautiously. "Who are you?" "I'm Jake." The man said, "Jake Daniels. And I think..." He hesitated, then continued, "I think I might be the father of your baby." Marley felt the blood drain from her face. Jake, her summer fling, the man who had disappeared without a trace, the biological father of her child. And he was standing on her doorstep, looking at her as if he had every right to be there. "How did you find me?" she managed to ask. "It wasn't easy," Jake admitted. "I've been trying to track you down for months. When I came back from overseas, I went to your old apartment, but you'd moved. Then I saw a photo of you with Lucien Thorne in some business magazine. They mentioned his pregnant girlfriend, but didn't name you. I had to do some digging to find this address." Marley's mind raced. A photo? Magazine? She and Lucien had been careful to keep their relationship private. "What do you want, Jake?" she asked, her protective instincts flaring. "I want to talk," he said, his tone softening. "When I left last summer, I didn't know about the baby. If I had known, I never would have disappeared like that." "Well, now you know," Marley said, her voice hard. "But it's a little late, don't you think?" Jake looked genuinely remorseful. "I know I messed up, but I want to make it right. I want to be part of my child's life." Marley felt a chill run through her. After all these months of planning and preparing, of building a life with Lucien, Jake's sudden appearance threatened. "Everything?" "You should go," she said, starting to close the door. Jake put his hand out, stopping the door. "Marley, please, just hear me out. I'm not asking to get back together or anything like that. I just want a chance to know my child." Before Marley could respond, another voice cut in. "I think you should take your hand off that door." Lucian stood at the bottom of the porch steps, his expression calm, but his eyes glacial. Jake turned, sizing. Up the newcomer. "You must be Thorn," he said. "And you're trespassing," Lucienne replied evenly, climbing the steps to stand beside Marley. "Is everything okay?" he asked her softly. Marley nodded, though she felt anything but okay. "This is Jake," she said, "the baby's biological father." Lucian's face revealed nothing, but Marley felt his body tense beside her. "I see," he said. "And what brings you here after all this time, Jake?" Jake looked between them, seeming to grasp the situation. "I just found out about the baby," he explained. "I've been overseas for work. By the time I got back and went looking for Marley, she'd moved. And now you've found her," Lucienne said. "Congratulations. But as you can see, she's moved on with her life." Jake's expression hardened. "Look, I get that you two are together now, and that's fine. But that's still my child she's carrying." "Biologically, yes," Lucian acknowledged. "But a real father is someone who's there, who shows up, who puts his child's needs before his own. Where were you when Marley was sick every morning for weeks? Where were you at the doctor's appointments, or the birthing classes, or when she needed help setting up the nursery?" Jake had no answer for that. "I think we all need to calm down," Marley interjected. "Jake, now isn't a good time. If you want to talk, we can set up a meeting later, with our lawyers present." Jake looked surprised. "Lawyers? Marley, I'm not trying to cause trouble. I just want to be involved, and we'll discuss what that means," she said firmly. "But not like this. Not with you showing up unannounced at my home." Jake hesitated, then nodded. "Fair enough. Can I give you my number?" Marley took his contact information, promising to be in touch, and watched as he walked back to his car. Only when he had driven away did she let out the breath she'd been holding. "Are you okay?" Lucian asked, guiding her inside and closing the door. Marley sank onto the couch, her hands shaking. "I don't know," she admitted. "I never expected to see him again. I certainly never expected him to want to be involved." Lucienne sat beside her, taking her hands in his. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know that either," she said, feeling tears start to form. "Legally, he has rights. He's the biological father, but you—" She looked at Lucian, her voice breaking. "You're the one who's been here. You're the one who cares. You're the one I want to raise this child with." Lucian pulled her close, his arms strong and steady around her. "Then that's what we'll do," he said. "Whatever happens with Jake, whatever legal arrangements we need to make, we'll face it together. I'm not going anywhere, Marley. I promise you that." As she rested her head on his shoulder, Marley wanted desperately to believe him. But she couldn't shake the feeling that their perfect world was about to be turned upside down. I've written part 3 of The Message. That changed everything, continuing to follow your guidelines for straightforward narrative and simple language. This section focuses on Marley and Lucienne rebuilding their relationship with honesty, Lucienne's growing commitment to Marley and the baby, and introduces the major complication of Jake's return. The narrative maintains its clear timeline and emotional focus while developing the relationship between the characters. I've kept the language accessible for an older audience, while still conveying the depth of the characters' emotions and the growing complexity of their situation. The weeks following Jake's appearance were tense. After consulting with a family law attorney, one Lucienne recommended but Marley insisted on paying for herself, they arranged a meeting to discuss Jake's role in the baby's life. "He has parental rights," the lawyer, Mrs. Bennett, explained during their consultation. "But how those rights are exercised can be negotiated." The meeting took place in Mrs. Bennett's office, with Jake bringing his own attorney. He seemed sincere in his desire to be involved, explaining that his own father had abandoned his family when he was young. "I don't want to be that kind of man," Jake said. "I want to know my child." After hours of discussion, they reached a tentative agreement. Jake would have visitation rights that would increase gradually as the baby got older, He would contribute financially to the child's upbringing, and major decisions would be made jointly. But primary custody would remain with Marley. As they were leaving, Jake pulled Marley aside. "I want you to know," he said quietly, "I'm not trying to come between you and Thorne. I can see he cares about you and the baby. I just want a chance to be part of my child's life." Marley nodded, appreciating his directness. "Thank you for saying that." On the drive home, Lucienne was unusually quiet. "What are you thinking?" Marley asked, reaching for his hand. He glanced at her, then back at the road. "I'm thinking that I want to marry you," he said simply. Marley's heart skipped a beat. "What?" Lucienne pulled the car over and turned to face her. "I know this isn't the romantic proposal you deserve, and I know the timing is complicated with Jake back in the picture. But I love you, Marley. I want to build a life with you. And this, baby, I want us to be a family, officially, legally, completely." Tears filled Marley's eyes. "Lucienne, you don't have to answer now," he said quickly. "I know it's a lot to process, but I wanted you to know where I stand." Marley looked at him, this man who had entered her life by chance and changed everything. "I don't need time," she said softly. Yes, I'll marry you." The joy that spread across Lucienne's face was like sunrise after a long night. He leaned across the console and kissed her, pouring all his love and hope into the gesture. When they broke apart, both smiling through tears, Marley added, "But not until after the baby comes." "I refuse to waddle down the aisle," Lucienne laughed. "Whenever you want, I'm not going anywhere." As Marley entered her 8th month of pregnancy, her doctor ordered bed rest due to slightly elevated blood pressure. Lucienne immediately restructured his work schedule, setting up a temporary office in their home so he could be there for her. One afternoon, as Marley was napping, the doorbell rang. Lucienne opened it to find Jake standing on the porch holding a large gift bag. "Is Marley available?" Jake asked. "She's resting," Lucienne said. "Doctor's orders." Jake nodded, looking concerned. "Is everything okay with the baby?" "Just a precaution," Lucienne assured him. "Her blood pressure's a bit high, so she's on bed rest for now." Jake held out the bag. "I brought some things for the baby, and for Marley. Just some books and snacks. Things to help pass the time while she's resting." Lucienne hesitated, then stepped back. "Why don't you come in? She should be up soon." It was the first time the two men had been alone together. An awkward silence fell as they sat in the living room. "Nice place," Jake commented, looking around. "Marley picked it," Lucienne said. "I just helped with the logistics." Jake nodded, then cleared his throat. "Look, I know this situation isn't ideal for any of us, but I want you to know that I respect what you're doing for Marley and the baby." "Lucienne," stuttered the younger man. "You could have just disappeared again," he acknowledged. "It would have been easier." "Easier, maybe," Jake agreed, "but not right. My dad walked out on us when I was 6. I swore I'd never do that to my own kid." For the first time, Lucienne felt a grudging respect for Jake. The man had principles, at least. "Can I ask you something?" Jake said after a moment. Lucienne nodded. "How did you and Marley meet? It seems like an unlikely connection. A billionaire and a bookstore clerk." Lucienne smiled slightly. "She sent me a text by mistake. A photo of her pregnancy test. She meant to send it to her friend." Jake's eyebrows shot up. "Seriously? And you responded?" "Something about the message, the vulnerability of it. I couldn't just ignore it." "And now you're engaged," Jake said, shaking his head. "Life is strange." "Very strange," Lucienne agreed. They heard movement from the hallway, and Marley appeared, looking sleepy and surprised to see Jake. "What's going on?" she asked, one hand resting on her rounded belly. "Jake brought some things for you and the baby," Lucienne explained, rising to help her to the couch. "I hope it's okay that I stopped by," Jake said. "I would have called, but I was in the neighborhood." Marley settled onto the couch, and Lucienne automatically adjusted a pillow behind her back. The tenderness of the gesture wasn't lost on Jake. "It's fine," Marley said. "What did you bring?" Jake handed her the bag. Inside were several classic children's books, a collection of healthy snacks, a soft blanket, and a small stuffed elephant. "The elephant was my favorite when I was little," Jake explained, looking embarrassed. "My mum saved it. I thought the baby might like it. Marley touched the worn toy gently. Thank you, Jake, that's really thoughtful. An uncomfortable silence fell as the reality of their situation hung in the air. 3 adults who would forever be connected through one child. I should go, Jake said, standing up. I just wanted to drop those off. Let me know if you need anything, okay? After he left, Marley turned to Lucian. That was civil. Lucian nodded. He seems to genuinely care about the baby. Does that bother you? Marley asked carefully. Lucien considered the question. No, he said finally. Every child deserves to be loved. The more people who love this baby, the better. Marley leaned against him, feeling a surge of gratitude for this man, who could be so secure in his love, so generous with his heart. I don't deserve you, she whispered. Lucien tilted her face up to his. You deserve everything good in this world, Marley Quinn, and I intend to spend my life making sure you know that. 2 weeks later, in the middle of the night, Marley woke with a sharp pain across her abdomen. She lay still, waiting to see if it would happen again. When it did, 5 minutes later, she gently shook Lucien awake. I think it's time, she said, trying to keep her voice calm despite the fear bubbling inside her. Lucien was instantly alert. Are you sure? You're not due for another 2 weeks. The baby has other ideas, Marley said, as another contraction gripped her. They had prepared for this moment, hospital bag packed, route mapped out, birth plan discussed. But now that it was actually happening, both felt the surge of anticipation and anxiety that comes with such a life-changing event. Lucien helped Marley to the car, his hands steady, even as his heart raced. As they drove to the hospital, he kept glancing at her, checking to see if she was okay. Stop looking at me like I'm about to explode, Marley said, attempting a smile despite the increasing pain. Keep your eyes on the road. Sorry, Lucien said, gripping the steering wheel tighter. I need you both to be okay. Marley reached over and squeezed his arm. We will be. At the hospital, things moved quickly. The nurse confirmed that Marley was indeed in active labor, already 5 centimeters dilated. This baby's in a hurry, the nurse commented as she hooked up the fetal monitor. Hours passed in a blur of pain, breathing exercises, and quiet encouragement from Lucien, who never left Marley's side. He held her hand through contractions, wiped her brow, and reminded her of her strength when she felt she couldn't go on. I can't do this, Marley gasped after a particularly intense contraction. You can, Lucien said firmly. You're the strongest person I know, Marley Quinn, and you're not alone. I'm right here with you. As morning light began to filter through the hospital blinds, the doctor announced it was time to push. 30 minutes later, the room filled with the powerful cry of a newborn baby. It's a girl, the doctor announced, placing the squirming, red-faced infant on Marley's chest. Marley looked down at her daughter, overwhelmed by a love so fierce and immediate that it took her breath away. She's perfect, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. She looked up at Lucien, who was staring at the baby with an expression of pure wonder. Do you want to hold her? She asked softly. Lucien nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. When the nurse placed the tiny bundle in his arms, something shifted inside him. A space he hadn't known was empty suddenly filled to overflowing. Hello, little one, he murmured, gently touching the baby's cheek. I've been waiting so long to meet you. The nurse asked for a name for the birth certificate. Marley and Lucien had discussed names extensively, but had kept their final choice. Private, waiting for this moment. Hope, Marley said, her eyes meeting Lucien's. Hope Thorne Quinn. It was perfect, acknowledging both her heritage and the future that awaited her. As Lucien handed Hope back to Marley, the new mother whispered, Thank you for being here. For everything. There's nowhere else I'd rather be, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. Later, as Marley rested, Lucien stepped into the hallway to make some calls. He texted Lisa, who promised to come by that afternoon. Then, after a moment's hesitation, he sent a message to Jake, letting him know about Hope's arrival. Jake's response was immediate. Is everyone okay? Can I visit? Lucien looked back through the door at Marley. sleeping peacefully with Hope in the bassinet beside her. This was their family now, unconventional perhaps, but no less real or precious for it. Tomorrow, he texted back. They need rest today. As he was about to go back into the room, a nurse approached with a clipboard. Mr. Thorne, we need a few more signatures for the birth certificate. Lucian hesitated. I'm not the biological father, he explained. The nurse nodded. But you'll be listed as the father on the birth certificate? Ms. Quinn indicated that was the plan. Lucian felt a wave of emotion wash over him. He and Marley had discussed this, but he wasn't sure she'd go through with it, especially with Jake. Back in the picture. Yes, he said, his voice steady. Yes, I'm her father. 3 days later, Marley and Hope came home from the hospital. Lucienne had prepared everything. The house was spotless, the nursery ready, the refrigerator stocked with meals. As Marley settled into the rocking chair to feed Hope, she looked around the sunny yellow room, taking in the bookshelves now filled with children's stories, the handmade quilt from the farmer's market that Lucienne had secretly gone back to buy, and the small stuffed elephant from Jake sitting on a shelf. It wasn't the life she had imagined for herself a year ago. It was better. Lucienne appeared in the doorway, watching them with a soft smile. Comfortable? Marley nodded. Perfect. We're perfect. Later that afternoon, the doorbell rang. Lucienne opened it to find Jake standing nervously on the porch, holding a bouquet of flowers and a small gift bag. Is this a good time? Jake asked. I can come back later if Marley's resting. She's up, Lucian said, stepping back to let him in. They're in the living room. Jake followed Lucian, his steps hesitant. When he saw Marley on the couch with the tiny bundle in her arms, he stopped, clearly emotional. Hey, Marley said softly. Come meet your daughter. Jake approached slowly, setting the flowers and gift on a side table. She's so small, he whispered, as he got his first look at Hope's face. Would you like to hold her? Marley offered. Jake looked surprised, then nodded. He sat carefully beside Marley, and she placed Hope in his arms, showing him how to support her head. Hello there, Jake said, his voice gentle. I'm your dad, one of them anyway. He glanced up at Lucienne, who stood watching from across the room. There was no jealousy or resentment in Lucienne's expression, only understanding. She has your eyes, Lucienne observed. Jake nodded, clearly moved. Thank you, he said, looking between Marley and Lucian. For letting me be part of this, I know it's not easy. Family rarely is, Marley said, but we'll figure it out for Hope's sake. As Jake handed Hope back to Marley, he said, I wanted to tell you both. I've accepted a job in Chicago. It's a good opportunity, but it means I won't be around as much as I'd planned. Marley and Lucienne exchanged a glance. We can work something out, Marley assured him. Video calls, scheduled visits. Hope will know you're her father, Jake. And she'll know how much you care, Lucienne added. That you came back, that you wanted to be in her life. That matters. Jake looked at Lucienne with new respect. Take care of them, he said simply. With everything I have, Lucienne promised. After Jake left, Lucienne sat beside Marley, putting his arm around her and looking down at their daughter. Are you okay? He asked. Marley leaned her head on his shoulder. I'm more than okay. I'm grateful. A year ago I was alone and terrified. Now look at us. A family, Lucian murmured, kissing the top of her head. All because of a wrong number, Marley said with a smile. The best mistake I ever made, Lucian agreed. Hope stirred in Marley's arms, her tiny face scrunching up before relaxing again into sleep. Marley thought about the journey that had brought them here. The fear and uncertainty of that positive pregnancy test, the accidental text that had changed everything, the challenges they'd faced and overcome together. She thought of the message she'd sent that day, words typed in desperation. I'm scared, I don't know what to do. And she thought of Lucienne's reply, the words that had opened the door to this new life. You don't know me, but I got your message. And if you let me, I want to help. I want to be there, even if it's just to listen. He had been true to his word. He had helped. He had been there. He had listened. And in doing so, he had given her something she'd never expected to find, a partner, a family, a home. As the afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows of the little blue house, casting A golden glow over the three of them, Marley knew with absolute certainty that this was where she belonged. This was her family. This was her future, and it had all begun with a message sent by mistake. 3 months later, on a perfect spring morning, Marley stood in the back room of Corner Books, her bookstore now, thanks to a business loan that Lucien had co-signed, but insisted she manage herself. The grand opening was scheduled for noon, and she was simultaneously excited and terrified. "Are you ready?" Lisa asked, adjusting the grand opening banner one last time. "As I'll ever be," Marley replied, smoothing. Down her dress, the front door chimed and Lucien walked in, carrying Hope in her baby carrier. At 3 months old, she was alert and curious, her eyes so like Jake's, taking in everything around her. "The photographer is set up outside," Lucien reported, setting Hope's carrier on the counter. "And there's already a line forming." Marley's eyes widened. "Really?" "Really," he confirmed with a smile. "Turns out people are excited about having a bookstore in the neighborhood again." Lisa excused herself to check on the refreshments, leaving Marley and Lucien alone with Hope. "I couldn't have done this without you," Marley said, gesturing around the beautifully renovated shop. "Yes, you could have," Lucien contradicted her gently. "You're the most determined person I know, but I'm glad I got to be part of it." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I have something for you, an early wedding present." They had set a date for the fall, planning a small ceremony in the garden behind their house. Jake had agreed to come, bringing Hope's new half-sister who was due in July. His relationship with Hope's stepmother was new but seemed solid, and Marley was grateful that her daughter would have siblings, even if they lived in different cities. "What is it?" Marley asked, taking the box. "Open it and see." Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a tiny envelope. "To remind you," Lucien said softly, "of the message that brought us together." Marley felt tears spring to her eyes as he fastened the bracelet around her wrist. "It's perfect," she whispered. Hope cooed from her carrier, and both turned to look at their daughter, who was watching them with bright, curious eyes. "What do you think, sweetheart?" Marley asked, lifting Hope into her arms. "Is Mommy ready to be a bookstore owner?" Hope responded by grabbing a strand of Marley's hair and tugging it, making both adults laugh. "I think that's a yes," Lucien said, putting his arm around them both. As they prepared to open the doors for the grand opening, Marley looked around at the life she had built. Her daughter in her arms, her fiancé by her side, her own bookstore about to welcome its first customers. A year ago, standing in her friend's bathroom with a positive pregnancy test, she couldn't have imagined any of this. One message sent to the wrong number had changed everything. Sometimes, Marley reflected, the most beautiful beginnings came from mistakes. And sometimes, the people who showed up unexpectedly in your life turned out to be exactly the ones you needed all along. "Ready?" Lucien asked, his hand on the door. Marley took a deep breath and nodded. "Ready." Together, they stepped forward, to greet whatever came next, secure in the knowledge that whatever challenges the future held, they would face them the same way they had faced everything else, together, as a family. The end.